It's a cure for hepatitis. It's a cure for chronic insomnia. It's a cure for tonsillitis and for water on the knee. Have a cup of tea. Have a cup of tea.
Hi everyone, how's it going? It's James here. This is a contest entry for Steve, Psych in the Valleys, great channel. Check him out if you haven't already. Steve wants us to nominate 5 Kinks songs, 5 favourite Kinks songs, so I'm going to try and do that. So I had been meaning to do a Kinks video for a while, so I suppose this might as well be it. And I quite enjoyed John Bellamy's response because he managed to tie all the songs into personal memories, which I thought was rather good. I don't know if I can quite sort of compete with that really, but I do have a kind of fairly long association with the Kinks. I was introduced to them back in the 90s with this CD. It's quite funny how quite a few people are showing compilations. They're just a great kind of comp band, aren't they? But I suppose it would have been around about sort of maybe 94, 95 when Britpop had broken big. I do seem to remember kind of cluing into the Kinks and the Small Faces at about the same time. In the 2000s, I got an iPod, and it was a 60 gig one. It was a big one. And a friend of mine, he gave me MP3s of all the Kinks albums, every single album, and all the Sparks albums as well. I mean, you know, the Kinks and Sparks both have enormous discographies. But at the time, my first son had been born, and I was pushing him around the streets a lot in a pram or a buggy, listening to Sparks and the Kinks, and I worked my way through all the Kinks albums and got to know them really well. And then at some point after that, the iPod died a death and I lost them all. So I don't own most of the Kinks albums anymore. I have owned them all on MP3 and I know them quite well because of that, but I don't actually own many of them. I'll quickly show you what I do have. I bought a reissue. Actually, let's start with this one. Let's try and go in chronological order. I got a reissue on red vinyl of Face to Face, which contains a lot of my favourite songs. Holiday in Waikiki, Most Exclusive Residence for Sale, which I love. You know, only Ray Davies could write a song about somebody, looking forward to having their house repossessed. And actually the same goes for this album, which contains a fantastic song. I don't think I put it on my list in the end, so I'm free to talk about it. Let's have a look. I've not put it on the list because I couldn't, in all honesty, say it was like an absolute true top drawer Kinks song, but it is one of my favourites. Off Muswell Hillbillies, the song Have a Cup of Tea, which must be the only rock song in the whole pantheon to mention the medical condition water on the knee, which only Ray Davies could do that. Absolutely great songwriter, no question about it. Muswell Hillbillies is one of my favourite Kinks albums. It just achieves this fantastic mixture of kind of English musical mixed with Americana. Never quite heard anybody do that. It's got a lot of kind of blues and kind of almost sort of early jazz stylings on it, but it's also got that kind of knees up Kinks English thing going on. Really interesting. Anyway, so yes, Muswell Hillbillies, I have the reissue of that. And then a couple of CDs. I've got Village Green Preservation Society on CD. This is an enhanced version which has the mono and the stereo version on there. And then this record that I picked up from a charity shop years ago, this is Word of Mouth, one of their 80s CDs. My number 5 choice actually is from Word of Mouth, and it is the song Summer's Gone, which is a great kind of anthemic song, but it's very melancholy. Ray Davies had a wonderful way of being able to pick up on the poignancy of life, of memories and that sense of pathos that you get when you look back on your life. And this song really speaks to me. It's all about how you sort of you go through life and you don't make as much of it as you should, and you don't enjoy things as much as you should. So when you look back, on your life, you realise, God, all that's gone now, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as I should. I get that all the time, When I'm on holiday, I'm always conscious thinking, oh shit, I'm not enjoying the holiday as much as I should be because in a week I'm going to be back at home, It's that classic kind of English neurotic thing which he expresses so well. He writes in this song, "It should have been a laugh, it should have been fun. When I think of all the things that we did last summer, now I look back, it seems such a crime. We couldn't appreciate it at the time." And there's a line which I find incredibly poignant. I mean, Ray Davies also had a wonderful way with being able to create a picture postcard image, you know, very pictorial, visual kind of songwriter. And he writes this stanza: "I was riding in the car with my mum and dad. He was driving the car, the kids were driving him mad. Dad looked at us, then he looked at his wife. He must have wondered where we all came from." What a fantastic set of lyrics that is. I mean, if you trace the rock lyric back to its source, you know, and you end up with Chuck Berry, and then you end up with, you know, Lennon and McCartney, and then Bob Dylan, Ray Davies found his own twist, and he was just able to articulate something so specific and so you know, profound, and he was able to work in, you know, personal memory and mix that with satire. Absolutely wonderful stuff. So number 5, "Summer's Gone," from the Word of Mouth album. There we go. Okay, so number 4, I'm going to go for the song "House in the Country," which is one of those great kind of early British rock and roll songs. It has that great kind of chugging Dave Davis guitar in it. It could almost be a Beatles song in a way, you know. But the fantastic bleakness of Ray's lyrics are starting to feed through already. And it's almost like kind of harsh quality to his words. You know, he kind of writes in the third person. And, you know, he rarely pulls any punches, and he creates these caricatures or portrayals of certain kinds of people, you know, undesirable elements in society. "You don't need no sedatives to ease his troubled mind. At work he is invariably unpleasant and unkind. Why should he care if he is hated in his home, because he's got a house in the country and a big sports car? Well, he got his job when drunken daddy tumbled down the stairs. From that very day, this boy is more than having his share. One of these days I'm going to knock him off his throne, because he's got a house in the country and a big sports car." You know, it's full of simmering resentment, and this kind of idea of this guy that you know who's just been given everything that he has. You know, he's got a big house, he's got a big country, and you're kind of watching him from the sidelines, and you know, you're not very impressed with him. It's just a great kind of twist on a you know, kind of rock and roll bluesy song, which could have been very generic, but because of Ray's lyrics, it just turns it into something kind of utterly original and fantastic. So that's number 4, "House in the Country." Okay, so number 3, I've gone for the song "Too Much on My Mind," which is a very, very sad song. I mean, nobody could do bleak like Ray Davies. I mean, he did suffer from mental health issues a lot in his life, and I think that's where a lot of his writing came from. It came from a kind of dark place. And when you read the words of this song off the page, you know, "My thoughts just weigh me down and drag me to the ground, and shake my head till there's no more left in me. It's ruining my brain. I'll never be the same. My poor demented mind is slowly going." But then he sets it to this incredibly beautiful, pretty arrangement. It's quite baroque, quite classical sounding, a kind of mixture of maybe, you know, Beach Boys meets George Martin orchestration, and quite ornate and, you know, full of detail. And just the fact that it kind of mixes that, the prettiness of the arrangement is mixed with this really kind of just bleak, absolutely bleak lyrical perspective. "My poor demented mind is slowly going." And I think there is a slight element of self-pity in Ray's work sometimes, but there's this really kind of dry, bitter humour comes through, which stops it being self-indulgent. And I think there's a true psychological reality behind his work. It's not a pose. You know, he's not writing about mental illness or depression in the third person. He's kind of using his own experience to animate that kind of songwriting. He's making it very real. Number 2, I'm going to go for another song from the Word of Mouth album, and this is one which I had completely forgotten about. And I was just walking the dog this morning, listening to the record on my new iPod, and this song popped up, and it actually almost made me cry, because it's such poignancy to the song, and it really strongly reminded me of pushing my son around in this buggy. But it's the song Going Solo, which comes right at the end of this record. And it is a very, very poignant song. It's when you first listen to it, you might think it's a song about a man who's being abandoned by his lover, but in fact it's a song about children flying the nest. You know, he's writing about a child, or just the way your children, you know, they come to completely rely on you and depend upon you, and then one day they just up sticks and they go, you know. There's a great kind of wordplay, you know, he sings so low, as in, you know, I feel so low, but it's going solo, which is a, you know, kind of classic bit of Ray Davies wordplay. But the words of the song are very frank. You know, he kind of cuts straight to the bone. He doesn't mess around trying to be clever. He just sings, we work like dogs all of our lives, like millions of other husbands and wives. Sent her through college, didn't care what we spent. Think of how we feel. She didn't say, she didn't ask, she just went. We see it happen time after time. You raise your children, you watch them grow, then one day it's goodbye. They've decided they're going solo. The toys are forgotten, now it appears. You've let them down after all of these years. Sacrificed all, now there's nothing to show. Ungrateful youth, decided you're going solo. The obligations, all of the ties have got to be broken so you can survive. And then this absolutely killer line, just because they gave you life, they can't stop if you grow. Now they can't hold you back because you're going solo. So it kind of twists the perspective at the end, and you know, talks from the child's point of view, thinking about the parents. Just because they gave you life, they can't stop if you grow. I think it's just the way it's welded to this very, very beautiful tune, and it's got brilliant guitar playing in it from Dave Davies. One of the things that moves me a lot about the Kinks actually is, if you read up about the Kinks and you understand the depth of personal problems that went down between Ray and Dave. I mean, it's a very complex story, you know, two brothers, an immense amount of sibling rivalry going on and all sorts of stuff. But when the chips were down, the way that Dave plays on Ray's songs, it kind of almost brings a tear to your eye. You know, the guitar playing is always so kind of strong and true, and you can hear the way that he never shortchanges Ray. You know, he always cooks up brilliant guitar parts, and just the way he plays them, the way he plays the guitar in that song, it's quite a simple rhythm guitar riff, but like I said, it's just so strong and so true and beautiful. And that kind of goes on all the way through the Kinks. And if you want to hear great electric guitar playing, you know, like I said before, just check out Dave Davies' work. Check out the song Brainwashed, which is from, I think it's from the Arthur album. And halfway through that song, Dave comes in playing this riff, and it's like every teenager's electric guitar, you know, moment of supreme nirvana. It's just this absolutely brilliant. It's got such kind of bite and clarity to it, the way he plays that guitar. And like I said, that was true of all the work he did, all the way through the Kinks. He just played great guitar for Ray, you know, and for his own songs as well. Okay, so for number one, I wanted to choose a classic song from the greatest hits, and I wanted to be maybe not too obvious, and also I wanted to not use ones that have been done before. So I'm actually going to go for the song Lola at number one, and just because it's a great jukebox song, and it's a great song to hear kind of loud, you know, in a club, for all the cleverness and all the intricacy and the subtlety and the sophistication of Ray Davies. He wrote great rock songs which just work as, you know, visceral songs. It is one of his most witty songs, really. It's a song about a young guy who, you know, meets I think it's meant to be like a transgender person, and you know, he has this kind of encounter where he's wondering if it's a man or a woman. Great kind of observational, satirical songwriting, and I think once again, you know, really pushing the boat out, changing the parameters of what it's possible to do in a rock song. Exactly the same thing that Bob Dylan did, but Ray did it in his own, you know, very British, very English style. And again, it's just welded to this fantastic Dave Davies guitar riff. I love the way it opens with that very slightly kind of out of tune or detuned guitar, which makes you, it just kind of wrong foots you a little bit, and then it goes into this wonderful finger picking thing. And you know, the song builds and it's got that great kind of outro which just goes on and on and on. It's kind of like almost like a proto T-Rex song in a way. It's just got a great feel good groove to it, and yeah, it's just a song that makes you feel good, just makes you feel like $1 million. And perhaps that was Ray's genius in a way. There was this kind of downbeat thing that went all through his work, and but his songs still make you feel good. You know, I mean, think, you know, Waterloo Sunset is such a beautiful romantic song. You know, the story of Terry and Julie, you know, meeting at Waterloo. It's just, you know, I mean, he was a poet, I think, and a wonderful musician and a songwriter. And I think you know, him and Dave are just kind of unrivaled, really, just in the rock canon. And yeah, I seem to have come to the end of my little patter, so I'm going to leave it there. So check out Steve's channel, Psych in the Valleys. I shall love you and leave you. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you soon. Bye bye.